As we grow older, a remarkable transformation begins to take place. Our bodies may start to show the marks of time: wrinkles, gray hair, less energy, and perhaps even some physical limitations that weren't there in our younger years. However, something equally powerful happens internally as we age. Our curiosity about the world around us grows stronger. It's as though the limitations of our bodies somehow spark an even deeper hunger in our hearts and minds. We become more interested in the way the world works, the people in it, and the technological advancements we often don't fully understand. This growing curiosity is a natural response to the narrowing of the physical world, where our ability to move as freely as we once did becomes more restricted. The sarcasm and dismissal that follow. When an older individual asks, "What is this?" or "How does this work?" it can be met with a series of responses that do not encourage open dialogue. Often, sarcasm is the first reaction. The younger generation may laugh or roll their eyes, signaling that they find the question either silly or irrelevant. They may respond with flippant comments that suggest they don't have time to explain, as though the very act of asking for clarification is a nuisance. Worse still, some may simply ignore the question, acting as though it's not even worthy of their attention. This lack of patience can be deeply hurtful, especially to someone who is trying their best to stay connected to the world and keep up with the rapidly changing times. Another common, equally painful response is to tell us to look it up ourselves. This dismissive suggestion cuts deeper than it might appear on the surface. It's a response that invalidates the act of asking questions altogether, leaving us feeling small and unimportant. It reinforces the feeling that our attempt to understand is burdensome rather than an opportunity for genuine exchange. For older individuals, this experience can be particularly jarring. After all, we've lived through a lifetime of valuable experiences. We've raised children, contributed to society, navigated personal and professional challenges, and weathered global events. To be brushed aside so carelessly can feel like a denial of all that we've lived through, all that we've learned. In those moments, it's easy to feel irrelevant or obsolete, especially when the younger generation is so quick to dismiss our attempts at engagement. But here's where the difficulty lies. As the world changes around us, we don't want to be left behind. We refuse to let the speed of technological advancements make us feel disconnected from the world, or from the younger people we love and care about. We want to remain intellectually engaged, curious, and relevant. The value of experience and resilience. It's important to remember that just because the world has changed doesn't mean our wisdom has lost its value. On the contrary, the experiences we have lived through, whether they were wars, economic downturns, cultural shifts, or even the personal trials we faced, have all shaped us into individuals with valuable perspectives. The younger generation may be more technologically savvy, but we possess something they cannot replicate: the resilience that comes from living through difficult times. This resilience is part of the treasure of experience, a gift that we have earned through years of navigating life's complexities. It is this wisdom, this enduring strength, that allows us to see the bigger picture, when younger generations may only see the fast-paced, immediate results of today's world. So why should we let ourselves be made to feel inferior by those who have not yet walked the paths we have walked? The answer is simple. We shouldn't. We should not allow the dismissiveness of others to undermine our sense of self-worth. Instead, we can acknowledge the reality of the gap between our experiences and the experiences of the younger generation, and then choose to respond with wisdom, patience, and emotional intelligence. Shifting the approach, wisdom over frustration. The key to navigating this challenge lies in embracing wisdom and emotional intelligence. When we ask a question and are met with a sarcastic or dismissive response, our natural inclination may be to respond with frustration or hurt. However, that reaction only perpetuates the divide between us and the younger generation. The solution is to take a step back and approach the conversation differently, using emotional intelligence to guide our interactions. Instead of directly asking a question that may prompt an eye roll or an impatient response, we can shift the dynamic by offering genuine compliments or expressions of admiration. For example, instead of saying, "How does this work?" we might say, "It's amazing how much information is at your fingertips today," or "I admire how quickly you can find answers to almost anything." By acknowledging the younger generation's skill with technology, we create an opportunity for them to share their knowledge without feeling like they're being interrogated. This opens the door for mutual respect and understanding. This approach fosters a more positive interaction. Rather than feeling like we are imposing or being made to feel insignificant, we are showing appreciation for the abilities of the younger generation, which often leads them to reciprocate by sharing what they know in a way that feels more like an exchange than a lesson. The result is a conversation where curiosity is still satisfied, but without the sting of dismissiveness. It also encourages the younger person to feel respected and appreciated, which makes them more likely to engage with us in a kind and patient manner. The power of curiosity and connection. Curiosity, at its core, is a beautiful thing. It's what keeps us engaged with life, keeps our minds sharp, and allows us to continue growing, even as we age. The desire to learn doesn't have to diminish with age, but we can be more mindful of how we express that curiosity. Rather than being frustrated by the rapid pace of technological change, we can adapt our approach to learning in a way that fosters connection and mutual respect. This doesn't mean suppressing our curiosity. It means using it as a bridge, not a barrier, to understanding and connection. We can choose to be both curious and wise, eager to learn, and mindful of how we interact with others. When we focus on building connections rather than seeking information in a transactional manner, we not only satisfy our own intellectual hunger but also encourage the younger generation to see us as more than just outdated or irrelevant. We remind them that we are not simply relics of the past. We are living, breathing individuals who are still learning, still contributing, and still growing. Conclusion: respecting the generational divide. Ultimately, the goal is to find a balance between our curiosity and the way we communicate it. By shifting our approach, we can foster positive interactions with the younger generation, preserve our dignity, and continue to learn from one another. The generational divide may seem wide, but it is not insurmountable. With emotional intelligence, patience, and a willingness to adapt, we can bridge that gap and continue to grow, not just as individuals, but as part of a larger, interconnected community. So the next time you find yourself facing a dismissive or sarcastic response to your curiosity, remember that the answer lies not in frustration, but in the wisdom and emotional intelligence you have cultivated over a lifetime. With kindness, respect, and a gentle approach, we can remain connected to the world and continue to contribute, learn, and grow, proving that age is not a barrier to curiosity or relevance. The complex psychology of arrogance. Arrogance often emerges when individuals struggle with feelings of inadequacy. For those who feel insecure about their abilities or worth, projecting a sense of superiority becomes a way to cope. They convince themselves, and sometimes others, that they are superior, even when it is far from the truth. Arrogance is more than just self-promotion. It's an effort to bolster an identity that feels too fragile to stand on its own. In fact, the more one struggles with insecurity, the greater the need to appear confident, sometimes even in exaggerated ways. At its worst, arrogance distorts reality. It can lead individuals to inflate their achievements, making small successes appear monumental and significant. By constantly presenting an image of superiority, people with fragile self-esteem attempt to convince others, and even themselves, that they are unshakable. However, beneath this bravado lies a deep fear of being found inadequate or inferior. This fear drives their need to display an image of confidence that, in truth, is fragile and unsustainable. Success and failure. The arrogant response. When people with an arrogant mindset achieve success, the results are often framed as personal triumphs that validate their inflated sense of self-worth. Their victories become symbols of their supposed greatness, proof of their superiority, and they take full credit for them. This need to claim success solely for themselves is rooted in their desire to feel validated. They crave recognition, not for the sake of acknowledgement, but as a way to fill the void of insecurity that exists within them. By asserting that they are great, they hope to secure their place at the top of the social ladder. However, when faced with failure, the dynamic shifts entirely. Arrogant individuals rarely take responsibility for their shortcomings or mistakes. Instead, they deflect blame, pointing to external factors that were beyond their control. "I didn't fail because of me," they might say. "It was because of circumstances outside of my control." This kind of response is not simply an attempt to protect their ego, it's a manifestation of the same insecurity that fuels their arrogance. Admitting failure means confronting the vulnerabilities they are so desperate to avoid. It forces them to face the reality that they too are human and fallible, just like everyone else. Bragging, a subtle form of arrogance. Bragging is often seen as a more subtle, yet equally telling, form of arrogance. While it may not be as overt as boastful proclamations of superiority, bragging nonetheless serves a similar purpose: to elevate oneself in the eyes of others. This behavior, while seemingly innocent, is driven by a deeper need for validation and recognition. Take, for example, the individual who invites others to a lavish dinner, not as an act of kindness, but as a way to flaunt their wealth or social status. In this case, the act of generosity is secondary to the desire to showcase their own importance and ability to provide. The underlying intention is not to enrich the lives of others, but to affirm their own self-worth by demonstrating what they can offer. At its core, bragging is an exaggerated display of accomplishments. The simple act of hosting a dinner or buying an extravagant gift becomes a performance meant to highlight one's success. In these moments, it is not the gesture itself that matters, but the attention it draws. The person is not offering kindness or generosity. They are offering a showcase of their own self-importance. Bragging distorts reality, turning ordinary achievements into something much grander than they are. The more a person engages in this behavior, the more transparent their insecurities become. Instead of creating a sense of awe or admiration, constant bragging eventually erodes the perception of the individual, revealing the insecurity that drives it. The dangers of excessive self-promotion over time. Individuals who continuously engage in bragging and self-promotion risk becoming more transparent to those around them. What they once hoped would elevate their status and impress others often does the opposite. The more they boast, the more they draw attention to the fragility of their self-esteem. Rather than making them appear confident, excessive self-promotion only exposes their need for validation. People begin to see through the facade, recognizing the underlying insecurity that drives the behavior. In many ways, bragging is a reflection of the person's deep-rooted fear of inadequacy. When individuals lack genuine confidence, they feel compelled to create a false image of superiority. They hope that by elevating themselves in the eyes of others, they can mask their vulnerabilities. However, this approach is ultimately counterproductive. Rather than building true self-esteem, it further deepens the insecurity they seek to conceal. The more they boast, the more their lack of self-assurance becomes apparent. The shift toward humility. Embracing true confidence. As we mature and gain experience, our understanding of confidence begins to shift. We realize that true self-esteem does not require constant validation or the need to prove our worth to others. Genuine confidence comes from within and is not contingent on external recognition or praise. It is quiet, steady, and unshakable, even in the face of failure. When we learn to be confident in our abilities and accept ourselves for who we are, flaws and all, we no longer feel the need to elevate ourselves above others. Humility, not arrogance, is the true mark of strength. Humility allows us to embrace our imperfections without the need for external validation. It is an expression of self-assurance that does not require constant reinforcement. Humble individuals do not boast about their achievements or seek attention through grand gestures. Instead, they let their actions speak for themselves. A kind gesture, a thoughtful word, or a quiet act of generosity often speaks volumes more than any boastful proclamation ever could. As we mature, we begin to understand that the most meaningful contributions are often the ones that go unnoticed by others. True acts of kindness are given without the need for recognition, and self-esteem becomes rooted in the knowledge that we do not need to prove ourselves to anyone. We no longer rely on external validation to feel worthy, because we understand that our value comes from within. This quiet confidence is the foundation of genuine self-esteem, and it is something that cannot be shattered by failure or diminished by the opinions of others. The fragility of arrogance. Why it doesn't serve us. Arrogance is ultimately a fragile defense mechanism built on the shaky foundation of insecurity. While it may offer temporary protection from feelings of inadequacy, it does not provide lasting fulfillment. The need to project superiority and self-importance only exacerbates the fear of being exposed as insufficient or weak. People who rely on arrogance to protect their sense of self-worth are often trapped in a cycle of self-doubt. They are constantly seeking external validation, but are never truly satisfied because the validation they seek is superficial and fleeting. In contrast, humility offers a stronger foundation for self-esteem. When we embrace humility, we stop seeking validation from others and begin to trust in our own worth. We stop trying to impress others with our accomplishments and start valuing ourselves for who we are, not for what we have achieved. This shift in perspective is liberating. It frees us from the need to perform and allows us to focus on living authentically. Embracing vulnerability, the path to true confidence. True strength lies in embracing our vulnerabilities. It is only when we acknowledge our weaknesses that we can begin to grow and evolve. The act of embracing vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but rather a demonstration of strength. It requires courage to be honest about our imperfections and to accept ourselves as we are. When we stop hiding behind a mask of arrogance, we allow our true selves to shine through. True confidence does not need to be defended or protected. It does not require constant reinforcement through arrogance or bragging. Instead, it is grounded in the acceptance of our flaws and the recognition that we are worthy, regardless of our mistakes or shortcomings. By letting go of the need to prove ourselves, we can begin to build genuine self-esteem that is resilient and unshakable. Trust in relationships. The balance between honesty and self-protection. Relationships, especially those that stand the test of time, are built on one fundamental pillar: trust. But trust, as anyone who has navigated the complexities of personal connections knows, is not about full disclosure of every detail, every flaw, every mistake we've made throughout our lives. True trust means sharing what is necessary to strengthen a bond, to deepen understanding, and to foster a sense of connection, while simultaneously protecting the core of who we are. There are parts of our past, of our stories, that may not necessarily need to be shared in their entirety with another person. While vulnerability can foster intimacy, it is essential to recognize that sharing every hardship or mistake can sometimes be overwhelming, not just for ourselves, but also for the person we are sharing with. Instead, we should be mindful of the stories we choose to share, ensuring they serve to uplift and enrich our relationship, rather than creating opportunities for regret or unnecessary hurt. When we choose to share selectively, we protect both our relationships and our own sense of self-worth. Our worth should not be defined solely by past experiences or perceived flaws. Instead, we should allow our actions in the present moment to speak for who we are today. The person we are now is the one who is engaging in the relationship, not the person we were in the past. Trust, therefore, is not about giving someone complete access to our past mistakes, but about fostering mutual understanding, respect, and compassion in the here and now. The role of actions in defining who you are. The weight of our history often looms over us. Sometimes we feel that the choices we made in our youth, the mistakes we've experienced, or the failures we've had along the way, are all aspects of our identity that must be shared and scrutinized in the course of a relationship. But there is an important lesson to remember here. We are defined not by our past, but by how we show up in the present. Our actions today, how we treat others, how we move through the world, and how we live with integrity, are the truest reflections of who we are. Instead of burdening our relationships with the need to disclose every imperfection, it is more empowering to let our actions today reflect our values, our growth, and our capacity for change. Every day, we make choices that speak to the evolution of our character. By allowing these actions to speak for themselves, we can build deeper, more genuine connections without the constant need to revisit old wounds. Our ability to present ourselves authentically, without the weight of past mistakes or regrets, fosters healthier, more sustainable relationships. The truth is, the past should stay in the past. It doesn't need to be continually dragged into the present, creating unnecessary conflict or discomfort. We must choose wisely what we share, ensuring that it serves to strengthen our bonds, not complicate them. The power of patience and the wisdom of self-control. As we grow older, one of the most challenging yet important lessons we must learn is how to manage our emotions, particularly our anger. It's common to hear people say that as we age, we become more like children, quick to react and irritable. While this might seem like a lighthearted observation, there's a kernel of truth to it. As we age, we may find ourselves getting frustrated more easily over seemingly minor matters. However, beneath this frustration, more often than not, is something far more profound: loneliness. Loneliness is a powerful emotion that grows more pervasive as we age. It's not just about being physically alone. It's about feeling like your presence no longer matters, that your experiences or contributions are overlooked. When we feel that people are moving on without us, That's when irritation and anger begin to take root. Anger becomes a response to a deeper emotional pain, an unconscious cry to remind others that we are still here, that we still matter. But here's the paradox. This anger, no matter how justified it may seem in the moment, rarely brings the validation we crave. Instead, it creates more distance between ourselves and others. The outbursts and frustrations push people away, leaving us feeling even more isolated and misunderstood. We end up alone in our anger, which only exacerbates the loneliness we seek to overcome. I remember a time when I let my anger consume me. A group of people I considered close friends had organized a meeting without informing me, and I felt betrayed. My mind raced with thoughts of exclusion, of being cast aside. In my frustration, I couldn't understand why they would make such a decision without considering my feelings. The more I dwelled on it, the angrier I became. Learning to let go of anger. As we age, we must develop the ability to step back from negative emotions like anger, resentment, and frustration. These emotions are heavy, burdensome, and ultimately counterproductive. Anger, particularly in old age, serves no purpose other than to weigh us down and distract us from the joys that life still has to offer. Children may throw tantrums and express their anger openly, but for adults, especially the elderly, anger should not be a defining characteristic. It robs us of peace, makes us bitter, and perpetuates a cycle of negativity. Instead, we must focus on living with grace, gentleness, and patience. We need to learn to release the grip that anger has on us, allowing ourselves the freedom to move through life without carrying its heavy burden. We don't have to react to every frustration. Instead of letting anger consume us, we can choose to let go of the past and its grievances, embracing the present moment with a renewed sense of inner peace. The time we have left is precious, and it should be spent nurturing our emotional well-being rather than dwelling on past hurts or perceived slights. The importance of letting go of negative emotions. Anger and frustration are not inevitable parts of growing older. In fact, they are often reactions to deeper emotions such as loneliness, fear, and insecurity. But it's important to remember that these feelings don't define us unless we allow them to. By choosing to let go of anger, we can create space for happiness, tranquility, and contentment. This choice is not easy, but it is essential for maintaining peace within ourselves and with others. Learning to control our emotions as we age means embracing a life that is more present and connected. Anger, if not tempered, can rob us of this beautiful opportunity. By allowing ourselves to release the past and its emotional baggage, we can make room for more meaningful, joyful experiences. The importance of emotional mastery. Ultimately, the key to a peaceful, fulfilling life as we grow older lies in emotional mastery. We must learn to manage our anger, to release negative emotions, and to choose our responses with wisdom and patience. Life, with all its challenges, is too short to be consumed by frustration or regret. By cultivating a peaceful heart and a calm mind, we open ourselves to the beauty and joy that still exists in the world around us. When we let go of anger, we allow ourselves to experience life in a more profound way, one that is not tainted by bitterness or frustration, but rather filled with acceptance, love, and the wisdom of knowing that we are enough as we are.